Welcome folks to a review of my Suzuki Hayabusa 2008, and there she is in all her glory, and here are some more amazing pictures of her. And this was a road trip that I took with some friends, and before we get to my friends, some more amazing pictures, and those are the folks that I travelled with across Europe, the Four Musketeers, and these are the bikes that we've done it on, and an amazing trip. Unfortunately, the 4 turned to 3 because we lost one of our compadres, that chap there, because this happened to him, unfortunately, but he joined us later on in the trip. So here we are at the Eurotunnel, about to roll in. 4 of us on our bikes, reunited, of course. The chap that had problems with his Tuono managed to get the bike back on the road and joined us for the 3rd leg of the tour. And you know, this is footage of us actually coming back from Calais on our way back to the UK. So throughout the course of this trip, I managed to spend about 1,500 miles on the Busa, and that was the first major ride that I had on her, and it's the only major ride that I've had on her. I bought her about 3 or 4 weeks ago before the trip, and I managed to get some good miles on her, so I'll be able to give a detailed review of my experience on the 2008 Hayabusa. Here it comes, people. Okay, so you're going to see some random footage of us riding through France, and France is such an amazing country to ride through. The scenery is phenomenal, as you can see. Don't ask me where we were because I don't have any idea. Absolutely none. I was at the mercy of my friends who knew where they were going, and even if they got lost, my sense of navigation is so bad I wouldn't have a clue. So I was there for the ride, I was there for the trip, and I wasn't disappointed at all. Just some amazing and phenomenal scenery and some roads that you can open up the legs on your bikes, particularly, you know, if you've got big bikes, some amazing roads that you can do that on. And I kind of want to touch 3 areas, starting off firstly with my biking history. So I started biking in 2013. It's 2018 now. I haven't been a biker for long. The first bike that I bought after my CBT was a Triumph Sprint 955. I had that for roughly about a year, and then I went on to a Duchess 1000 K4 model, and that was a bit of a baptism of fire. Thoroughly enjoyed that bike, but it was too uncomfortable for me at my age. I remember riding down to Wales once with some friends, and we done a quick blast there and a quick blast back, but it was an all-day trip, and by the time that I got back, I was stuck on my bike. I couldn't get off it because my back had seized, my shoulders had seized, and I couldn't get my leg over, no pun intended. So after that I decided, right, I can't roll like this. My friends have got, as you saw in the picture earlier on, one of them's got a 1200 BB Blackbird. My other friend, who wasn't able to join us, has got a K1300 touring bike, so I need to get myself a tourer. So after the Jigsaw, I bought myself a Hayabusa Stealth K4 model, and I absolutely loved it. Absolutely loved it. It was a brilliant bike, first generation Hayabusa. Unfortunately, I got knocked off that in Bristol on the way to Cheddar Gorge at Willie Wicket roundabout, and my bike was written off, but thankfully I wasn't injured, so I managed then to get back onto 2 wheels, and I bought myself a BMW K1200S on a 2008 model. Now that's more of a gentleman's bike, I would argue. It's nowhere near as exciting as the first gen Hayabusa, and it's nowhere near as exciting as the second gen Hayabusa. Second gen is just absolutely phenomenal, but we'll get onto that. One of the greatest things that I liked about the K1200 was the fact that it had a shaft. The maintenance is virtually zero. Going back to a chain after a shaft, you know, you really kind of feel it. But that said, the K1200 was a phenomenal bike, and this is Brexit 2. So the second road trip that we've done across France. Brexit 1 was done on the K1200S, and it was effortless. You know, it toured across most of France, over a 3-day jaunt. About 1,100 miles we done on that trip, and it was effortless, absolutely brilliant. So that's my biking history. Once I sold that, I was umming and ahhing about what to get, and I was tempted by the S1000RR. But the S1000RR, you know, if something goes wrong on that, that's a costly trip to the dealership. I knew a little bit about Hayabusas and you know, the kind of affinity to Jap bikes, the way that they're engineered, the reliability, and all of those kind of things. I'll probably do a review on my K1200S if anybody's interested in that. Talk about what I found positive and negative about that. But I thought, right, I'm safe with Jap. I'm probably going to stick to Jap. And also it was about £4,000 cheaper as well, so I decided to go with the Gen 2 Hayabusa. Now my bike, my particular bike, 2008, had about 19,000 miles on it when I bought it. And I didn't do much mileage before. I went on to the road trip, probably about a couple of 100 miles, tazzing around the roads of the UK. It's got the twin Yoshimura cans on there. It's got a tail tidy fitted, and I put some additional little bits and bobs on there for the road trip. It's got the short stubby levers, which I've since changed. I think the Strider Racing ones, but I've since changed those to gold to match with the alloys. And other than that, it's a standard bike. It's not been messed about in terms of tuning, and it's not been messed about in terms of you know, any kind of boy racer aftermarket bits and bobs that make it look you know, a little bit odd. I'm at that age where I need to kind of have a standard as possible looking bike, and I've just got to say, you know, just looking back at this footage, France was just phenomenal. The weather was amazing, the roads are impeccable, the lane discipline of the people that actually ride and drive there is incredible as well. So much for riding out of UK across Europe. But anyway, moving back on with the bike. So yeah, it's a pretty standard bike. It's the pearl black and navy blue kind of color scheme, which I think looks really smart. There's some Hayabusas that you look at, and even though the bike underneath the colors is the same, they look bloody ugly because of the colors or the color scheme that the manufacturers used. But I think I got one of the best color schemes, navy blue and black with gold alloys, which I think really looks smart. So you've seen some of the pictures of the bike, so I think it looks great. Now when I bought it, it had a non-standard seat on it, and you know, I just want to kind of that takes me into the first part of what I want to talk about in terms of the ride. The non-standard seat and the non-standard bits made it feel uncomfortable. I was perched more on the tank. There was a lot of weight coming onto my shoulders and my wrists. So I took it back to a local company here called Street Bike, who are the authorized Suzuki dealers. Got them to have a look at it, and they told me, you know, to change the seats around to the original ones. As I said, you know, I've not been biking that long, so I don't know much about bikes. You know, certainly probably not as much as some of the people that are actually watching this review, and certainly not as much as one of the guys who we bike with knows about in terms of bikes, maintenance, and all of that kind of stuff. So I did as I was told. I got a standard seat, and it was a lot more comfortable, and it took a lot of pressure off my back as well. And over the course of 1,500 miles, I've got to say it was effortless. Riding the Busa across France, the twisty roads, on the motorways, in the cities. It is really a bike for all kind of applications. Doesn't matter where you're going, it will get you there. If you want to have fun, it will give you that as well. So really a bike for all kind of applications, and you can see here now, you know, we're tazzing through the country lanes, and it's one of those bikes that you can run at pedestrian speeds, nice and comfortable through the turns and the corners, and especially when you're doing that kind of what I refer to as mission mileage. You really want to enjoy the ride. You don't want to be hating the bike. You don't want to be hating the trip, because you've got so much incredible scenery out there. Let's look at that. You've got so much to see, and you really want to kind of enjoy your time on the bike. And I thoroughly enjoyed my time on my bike. Now I've got a bit of a back problem as well, so in order to kind of make things a little bit easier for me, I'd strap my waist up and strap my bike back up, just to make sure that I can do the distance. But even then, it was very comfortable. So definitely, a bike that is made for the roads and doing the kind of distances. And speaking of distances, it doesn't matter if that's a short distance just down to the shops, or a long distance like we've done. And you're going to see, I think, in one of the videos coming up now, some of the straights that we've got on the French roads, and the straights are just incredible. And when you see those kind of straights, you just want to open up your bike, and it's there. So from pottering around on country lanes to taking the bike on the open roads and really stretching its legs, it's a phenomenal piece of kit. So I found it personally very comfortable. The ride was comfortable, good for long distances. I was on it for 5 days, 1,500 miles, and I felt comfortable at the end of it. I didn't feel as though I was absolutely battered at the end of a long day's ride. And more importantly, I suppose, I wanted to get back. I was looking forward to getting back onto the bike on the following day, and that kind of takes me on to the handling part of the bike. Now, it's a big piece of kit. Okay, it feels smaller than the Generation 1 bike. It looks a little bit smaller as well. I don't know what the dimensions are. I'm not that much of a geek, but it just looks a little bit smaller on the to the eye. And it is just as bloody heavy. So if you drop it, it's going to take a couple of you to get it up again. That's the bike, that is. When you get on it and you start moving, the weight just completely disappears, and it feels as light, to me anyway, it feels as light as the Duchess 1000 that I had. Now, I'm no professional racer. I'm particularly good in straights, where I don't have to point the nose anywhere aside from forward, and I can open the throttle all day long. But in terms of taking it around the bends and tracks, that's not my forte. But even for me, it feels light. I feel comfortable and I feel confident in taking it around the bends and taking it around the corners. I'm not worried about a 1300 or 1340 cc tilting over or falling to the side or whatever it may be. It feels so light, it's so responsive, and it feels really kind of nimble for a big bike. Now, bear in mind, I've been riding big bikes for a while now. I had the K1200S for almost 2 years. I had the first gen Hayabusa before that, 2 years, and then before that I had the K1000 Gixxer. It's been probably about 4 years since I've started. Since I've ridden a smaller bike, but for me it just felt like a very kind of responsive and nimble piece of kit, considering the actual size and the weight of it. Now, given the size and the weight, the way that it picks up speed is just scandalous. Honestly, you could lose your license very quickly on this piece of kit. You've got to be very careful. And one of the gripes that I've probably got about the bike is that it doesn't have a digital speedometer, which you really need on this bike, in my opinion. It's got a digital gearometer, which is great, but it needs a digital speedometer, because sometimes at the speeds that you're going, looking down and trying to figure out where you are on the speedometer is or can be dangerous. So you need to be able to quickly glance down and glance back up again and know how fast you're going. So I think it's desperately missing one of those. I'm not entirely sure what Suzuki was thinking. Knowing that the speeds that this bike is capable of, why wouldn't you put something in that allows your rider to very quickly just glance down at the cluster, know how fast he or she is going, and then adjust their speed accordingly, rather than having to concentrate and look at the speedo. And the speedo's got a lot of numbers on it. I'm not going to kind of shy away from the fact that this is a bike made for speed, and it does a very good top end. and it does it very quickly as well. So you can get from naught to wherever you want to get to very quickly. So it's important to have, in my opinion, that kind of support mechanism in there to make sure that the the rider knows how fast they're going. But aside from that, I think that overall the bike was absolutely brilliant in terms of ride, in terms of handling, in terms of the ability to sit on it day after day for 5 days straight in tour across France and enjoy the time that's on there. It's an incredibly quick bike, and by God's grace and mercy, I didn't have any issues. No issues, thank God, in terms of reliability. I gave it a good solid service before I left, and that's another thing as well. That's something that I was able to do myself. So the maintenance was taken care of. Now, I bought this bike from a dealership down the south of England. I'm not going to mention who, but they put it through one of their inspections and said that yeah, it was all good to go and it didn't need any work doing to it. It wasn't good to go. I checked it when I kind of before I took it to France, as you do. The kind of filters and the plugs. The oil was black. The air filter was filthy. And considering that I spent the better side of £5,000 for it, I expected it to be in a better shape than what it was. So let that just be a lesson to everybody. Just because you're buying a bike from a dealership doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to do the bits and bobs that they should, ought, or need to do. So I ended up servicing it myself, made sure that everything that was done, everything that needed to be done was done, and by God's grace, I didn't have any issues throughout the road trip. Started fine, ran the course fine. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant, and I loved every single minute of it. Reliability, that covers that. So in my opinion, if you're going to go, or if anybody's going to go for a super bike or a hyper bike or whatever the bloody hell these are called, the Hayabusa is certainly on top of the list. I thoroughly enjoyed my 2008 Hayabusa. I kind of kitted it up for a tour as well, so I added a 5-volt charger so I could have my phone charging. I added a RAM mount. I put a top box onto it, bought a case off eBay so I could attach my Givey top box. I added a tank ring so I could attach my tank lock tank bag, and all of those kind of little bits and bobs that make a long distance road trip a little bit easier. But I completely I'm in love with my Hayabusa. I think, to be honest with you, I'm going to stick with Suzuki. I may dabble with the ZZR 1400 for a test drive and see what that's like, but in terms of all of the things that this one did, the Gen 2 did for me, ride, handling, speed, the ease that it covered, the distance, the reliability, all of that, and just the sheer fun, it puts a huge smile on your face, and that's what, for me, motorbiking is all about. Especially when you're out with your mates and you've got amazing scenery like we have, parts of France that I probably won't see again. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. So that's my review. I would give it a solid 10 out of 10. There's very little that I'm kind of thinking that I can think of in terms of negative points. Maybe the fuel economy, maybe a little bit of the weight, certainly the instrument cluster with the lack of digital speedometer, but other than that, if you can live with that, an absolutely amazing bike. The rest of this video now is going to be footage of us guys heading back to Calais and boarding the Eurotunnel to get back home. Hope you enjoyed the review. If you did, then you're more than welcome to subscribe, like the video, and God willing, we'll be looking to get more content up over the weeks and months to come. And if anybody's got any questions or any advice in relation to Hayabusa Gen 1 or Gen 2, feel free to drop me a message and hit us up. Enjoy the rest of the vid, people. Right, bloody hell, that is dirty. Alhamdulillah, we've arrived at Calais, and the Euro, as you can see, and we're waiting to board now. Alhamdulillah, Brexit 2 has come to an end, and what an adventure it's been. That miskeen, Allah bless him, that one there, that one there. Realised we could catch the 10 to 1 train, or was it 10 to 1 train, wasn't it? 10 to 2 train. I've only seen him for dust. For 4 days he's been at the back, and we say at the back, at the very back, like about 2 days behind. We tell him, right, that listen, there's the possibility of catching the earlier train. My man's gone, off on his tolls, we can't catch him. And then when he gets here, he breaks down. You couldn't make it up, man, alhamdulillah.
Nonsense about, oh, the bike can't take it, it's drinking fuel. I don't know why, I've never heard these excuses ever. They're original, I'll give him that, they're original.
Original.